Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Pet Lovers Summit. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have another amazing guest for you to check out today. Her name is Leah D'Ambrosio, and she is our guest speaker today talking about CBD pet care made easy. A California native, Leah D'Ambrosio is the COO and co-founder of Baked Smart, creator of edible decal kits for cannabis edibles and partner in Animal Bonds, where she and her partner, Jamie Lee, are elevating the lives of animals and people who love them through meditation and animal Reiki. Leah also co-founded the Shelter Animal Reiki Association, SARA, with Kathleen Prasad, who is also on the summit, in 2008 to bring meditation techniques to animal shelters around the world. She has taught people how to meditate with all species of animals, including her favorites, tigers and snakes. Woo! She incorporates meditation into her entrepreneurial roles through a simple daily mantra. For today only, do not anger, do not worry, be humble, be grateful, be honest in your work, and be compassionate to yourself and others, she says, because life gets in the way of everybody. Leah, I love that mantra. Thank you so much for being here today. And there's so much that we are going to unpack. And I have been looking forward to this interview, my dear.
Oh, me too. You know, I love sharing about cannabis. And my road here, it was really strange because, you know, I was raised in the 70s in Northern California. So marijuana, cannabis is everywhere, right? Not a big deal. Everybody was doing it. But then, you know, you get older. And then when I had my son and he's in, you know, elementary school, junior high school, it's during the DARE program. And so, you know, there's all this hype that just say no to drugs and drugs are bad. And remember the marijuana, this is your brain on drugs. And so all this. So I was really anti-drugs for a long time. And then my stepfather got cancer and they prescribed marijuana. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is a Schedule I drug, which means it has zero medicinal value. Why are they giving him marijuana? And so it was really interesting. And I started to do research and it was like, well, wait a second. A lot of people are getting marijuana for cancer and other diseases. And people, you know, I started to realize that people I worked with that were attorneys, they were, oh yeah, I get high. I get high before a trial. It helps me think. It helps me concentrate. And so I just started to open up my whole world to it. And it's really fascinating how we even got here. And I really hope that I can share that history with all of your viewers because
I'm looking forward to it. Let's do it.
It's just so let's just start there, right? So so they can trace cannabis back. This is crazy. 28 million years. So this plant survived the ice ages, right? And they can even track it back to 10,000 years, you know, during Stone Age times where they were using it freely. You know, and we've used it around the world freely for thousands of years, right? So, but let's just get to the US. And this is what I found so fascinating. In 1850, the US Pharmacopoeia, so, you know, that's where they're a group that says, hey, these are good supplements to take. We approve these for medicinal purposes, right? So they put cannabis on the pharmacopoeia list and they put it would help ailments like addiction, alcoholism, menstrual cramps, tonsillitis, you know, convulsions, all these different things. And so we were using it freely in the United States. And in fact, in the early 20s, there were these things called teapods, I think, and they were marijuana clubs. So we're using marijuana, everybody's going on and it's helping people. But then here comes the pharmaceutical companies and they start saying things like, you know, herbs don't work. Chinese medicine doesn't work. Cannabis is taken off the pharmacopoeia list. And I think it was around like 42 or 50 or somewhere in there. And then now it's starting to get like criminalized, right? Like reefer madness comes out and all this propaganda about cannabis being bad and it's a horrible drug for you. And people start believing this. So then in 1969, cannabis becomes a Schedule I drug. So everybody just so you know what a Schedule 1 drug is, it means, like I said, 0 medicinal value. Heroin is a Schedule 1 drug. Schedule 2 drugs, opiates.
Okay.
That means there could be, and it's like cannabis is worse than opiates. Schedule 4 drugs, Xanax, Valium, Ativan, all these things we know that are highly addictive. So the scheduling is crazy and really off kilter, and we need to change that, because what we're finding out now thankfully through legalization, is that cannabis is an incredible plant, because I think it was 30 plus years ago, they found out that within our bodies, we have an endocannabinoid system. And it's called like the ECS, right? And so your endocannabinoid system is like the master, dashboard of all your different systems, your blood system, your muscle system, your skeletal system. So when something is off in your body, there's a little signal that goes to your ECS. Well, guess what? The cannabis plant has an endocannabinoid system.
Nice.
So it has over 100 cannabinoids, which is CBD is one, THC is one, but also CBN, CBG, CBA, THCA, all these different cannabinoids, and they all do different things. So that's why when we take the whole plant and they make like what's called a full spectrum. So like you can get a full spectrum cannabis THC oil or full spectrum CBD oil. They're taking that whole plant, and when you ingest it, now this plant can help go to where you might be lacking, because it works the same way in itself as it does in us. So it's just amazing, amazing property cannabis is, and it can help our bodies. That's why people find relief from pain. That's why some people, not everyone, and they're still trying to figure this out in Israel, they're doing studies on why certain strains of cannabis will help reduce tumors, cancer tumors, and certain strains won't. So they have done Petri dish things where, cancer will actually shrink using certain strains. So again, because all these different cannabinoids, they really help our body. Animals have endocannabinoid systems. So that is why CBD and THC, but we're not here to talk about THC because you really need a vet's help with that. But for CBD, which is completely safe, it helps our animals with things like arthritis and inflammation, anxiety, seizures, all these wonderful things. And so I, of course, am not a vet. All the information I'm going to share with you and your group is from Dr. Gary Richter, who I'm so excited is also a guest on this summit. And I encourage everyone to watch him.
Yes.
He is an amazing vet. I've known him. I've been following Dr. Richter probably since around 2014. And that was before I even knew he was a cannabis vet. I learned that in 2015. And he is just amazing. He has so much experience because he's been using cannabis for over 20 years with animals.
Awesome.
So he is one of the few. And I just love that about him. So everything that I'm going to share with you all comes from him. And so one of the things that he says is that studies have shown that cannabis has many of the same mechanisms of action from the standpoint of fighting cancer that chemotherapy actually does. So so the plant actually can do what chemotherapy. Now, of course, you're not going to want to just go, hey, I've got cancer, I'm going to just take cannabis. You can't, but it's so encouraging to know that there's so many healing properties in this. So
that's amazing. It's like we were made to work with each other.
Yes.
And the animals, humans and animals. It's like we were designed to work together because we have the same properties that sort of link together.
I mean, if you believe in God and you believe that God put, something on this earth to cure all of us, I mean, this plant is literally a miracle plant. I
love that. And what is the difference between CBD and THC for those who don't know?
So this is a big differentiation, right? Because THC is the psychological high. So if you were to smoke like a joint and they're just like, oh, this is straight CBD, or you go to your dispensary and you're looking for a THC heavy strain, then it's really going to affect you psychologically. And that's where like the paranoia can come in. That's where you can kind of had bad trips, but then also sometimes it helps people concentrate. It does a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but with animals, it's very dangerous to use THC without any type of guidance from a vet, because you can get animals high very easily. And I know this from personal experience. One of my dogs got accidentally high, and he was drooling. He lost bladder control. Some dogs will defecate, some dogs will vomit. It is just a really horrible situation. It lasts hours. I mean, it's hours long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in-step CBD, here's a great trick.
Which is a different component of
it's a different endocannabinoid, right? I mean, so it's
the THC is taken out.
THC is not there. Now, there are, if you get a full spectrum CBD oil, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, there will be a trace amount of THC, and that's not a bad thing. It's just a teeny bit, not going to get you high. You're not even going to know about it. And they do have oils for pets, and they do have a trace. It's like 0.03%. So it's very, very small. But they also, they say there's a lot of studies that say you need that little bit of THC for the entourage effect in order to like amplify CBD.
Right.
So when we talk about CBD, we're talking about a body high. So now when you want to target pain or arthritis or things like that with your animals, right? Anxiety, aggressiveness even, then CBD is really a miracle, because CBD will not cause any problems. CBD will not kill your dog or your cat. What CBD will do is make them very, very tired, and they will get diarrhea. If you're using an oil and you're using a little bit too much, or even if you're using the right amount, sometimes they're going to get diarrhea. So I always suggest, have pumpkin, give a tablespoon of pumpkin, sweet potato, natural things that help them to combat that diarrhea. But you cannot kill a dog or a cat or a horse or any animal with CBD, or interestingly enough, THC. So I'd love to share this really quickly, and I'll make it fast.
Yeah.
In 1973, they did a study it was dogs, monkeys, and rats. And it was all about trying to see how much marijuana you needed in order to kill the subject. So there's the LD50, which is lethal dose 50. And so if you hit a lethal dose of 50, if 50% of your subjects die, then it's not going to go to market, right? So they tried to kill these animals. Now, thankfully, this is banned. This is no longer an acceptable way to do things. But back then in 1973, so if you or I were going to take CBD or THC for the first time, we would take about 5 milligrams. They were giving these animals 3,000 to 9,000 milligrams.
Oh my God.
That is like a trip you would never, ever take. Even the stoniest stoner on the street probably only inhales and ingests about 200 to 300 milligrams, maybe 500, but 9,000. So here's the interesting part. None of the animals died. If they did die, now the rats were a little more prone to dying, but it wasn't because of the marijuana. It was because of vomiting or because of other medical
dehydration,
things, right? Exactly. Dehydration. So this is such a safe supplement. Sorry, my dogs, I have 3 dogs. So they're all there's background noise here. But so it's such an incredibly safe supplement. And I just want to nail that home with that, because you can't go wrong with CBD. It's not the same for THC, and it's not like THC is going to kill your animal, but you can't guarantee, like if your animal has heart problems, or like you said, dehydration, or if they vomit in their sleep and asphyxiate, they can die from that. So you always want to be so careful with that.
Right. And so just coupling on to that, you're talking about, so CBD is safe, THC can be really traumatic for the animals, but we need a tiny bit. So I understand you're going to talk to us about trusted sources, because not everything is regulated, and sometimes there's too much THC, sometimes there's not enough CBD. So how does a pet owner differentiate?
Well, so you're going to, this is where your vet comes in to play, right? Because you want to talk to your vet about THC. So there are some really great companies out of California that are pet centric, that use, California is a legal state. So if you're in a different state, of course, you unfortunately can't get it. But in California, if you're a resident and your dog gets cancer, you might be able to find a vet that can help you with that. Now, there is a problem. The reason vets don't want to talk about cannabis and THC and CBD is not because they're all anti-drug. I mean, some of them are, and they don't understand the healing properties, but a lot of them, they can't, because the FDA they don't condone the use of cannabis for dogs and other pets or other animals. So because of this, vets are really, really hesitant to cross that and advise people on how to approach using CBD and THC. But here's where Dr. Gary Richter, just so amazing, he comes in. He started a nonprofit called veterinary-cannabis-society.org, VCS. And of course, you'll get all this information in my guide. This is all going to be information from Dr. Gary's site and other resources. And so again, it's the Veterinary Cannabis Society, and it is a great society. You can find a vet, hopefully in your state, but even in another state that would maybe do a consult with you about CBD and THC.
Nice. Yes.
You can join them for, I think it's $75 a year. And you get all kinds of information, all the latest, greatest, because right now in California, they're trying to pass a bill so that vets can freely and openly talk to their patients about using cannabis and THC.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because, you do want THC sometimes for animals that are suffering from cancer. You want that higher THC level. So a great combination is a 1-to-1, and that means equal parts THC to equal parts CBD. And you're going to see this a lot in legal states. So a 1-to-1, again, like 5 milligrams THC, 5 milligrams of CBD.
Right.
You'll do a 4-to-1, 4 parts CBD to 1 part cannabis or THC. And then again, like a 20-to-1. I had to use a 20-to-1 for my dog. He fell off. He's 13 years old and he thinks he's a puppy. And he jumped off a dune in this place. So we were at the beach, but it was all, we were isolated, but there was a dispensary. And I know from just, my practice and my businesses, okay, I'm going to go get him a 20-to-1. So that he can combat the pain, and it'll also help the inflammation. So I went, and they only had gummies in a 20-to-1. So I got Leo gummies, and I gave him like 3 gummies throughout that first day. And the next day he woke up and he could walk. And he was still limping, but he wasn't. And I just kept giving him that. Interestingly enough, my boyfriend, he knew that it worked then, but when Leo hurt his knee just a couple months ago, he wanted to go the conventional route. So they put him on tramadol, I think. And it took him over a month to heal with the CBD and a little bit of THC. It took him 2 weeks to be completely back. So there is a lot of benefits in CBD. And if you're not in a legal state, it's okay, get CBD. So yes, there are some trusted resources. There's some great sites, and let me just, because I don't want to butcher their names here. And again, it's going to be in the guide.
Everything's going to be on the links below. Everybody's going to be given those awesome links so that we can just
lots of information. Love to share. So real tested CBD is my go-to. Real tested CBD tests for the value of the product, the efficacy of the product, the quality, all these different things. They have this really intense scrutiny that they put CBD oils under. And the one that I always come back to is Penguin. Penguin is newer to the scene, but they consistently get really high reviews, not only from real tested CBD, but from other review sites. And that's a lot. So you want to do your due diligence, but real tested CBD. Now, one that I used to recommend to everyone was New Leaf, and they're still really good, but they're rating at about 83. Whereas Penguin rates consistently at about 91. So, you really want to be careful, because some of your trusted brands, they might be falling down in quality for whatever reasons, right? So you always want to go to a review site. And one thing I always caution people, there is a difference between being in a recreational state and being in a medically approved state. So like, let's say a state like Louisiana. They're medically approved. Now, they're not a great example because it's harder to get to buy things in Louisiana. But let's say you could go into what they call a medical dispensary and buy something. Medical states don't have the testing that completely recreational legal states do. So states like California, Washington, Oregon, they have all, really what is it? What am I trying to say? Like gotten dialed in on their lab testing. So when you get a lab test out of California or out of Oregon, you know that what you're reading is pretty much gospel. Out of a medical state, they don't have the lab rules that they do yet. So it's really loosey-goosey. And so I had adopted a dog out of California, and it was right after California went legal. And it's usually when they go recreational, you got to give your states 2 years to get it right. So this was right after they went recreational. This little dog comes up from California with this great bottle of CBD. It has how many milligrams? It's all professional looking. And I'm like, great, it's CBD. I should have tested it myself because CBD is completely safe. I wasn't going to get high, but I just followed the instructions, gave it to her. She got completely high, and it was horrible. She's a 98 or 28 pound disabled little girl, and she is shaking, she's drooling, and she's scared.
This is the dog you were referencing earlier.
No, this is a different dog. This little girl came up with a bottle of CBD from a rescue that trusted this company. And I had to call them and say, this has got THC in it. You can't be promoting this company. And I called the company and they said, oh, well, it must have been a mistake. You know, big deal. It's a big deal. So you always want to test your CBD and see how you're going to feel. And then just make sure that the state that you're getting out of it is somebody like, now I would trust California because they've been recreational for a while, but you know, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, they've been doing it longer. And so the companies that are, and I think Penguin is out of Oregon. So that's a really good sign. So so you just want to make sure that that source is reliable.
Awesome. Okay. I love that. Yeah. It's interesting that, I don't know that we have so much to learn, basically.
Oh God.
You're illuminating the path to us that we have so much to learn, but I know what my brain just jumped back on the tracks. Here I am. Hi. So when you were referencing how your boyfriend hurt himself and he was on traditional medicine and it took him a really long time to heal, and then just with a few weeks.
It was the dog. It was our dog. So it was Leo got hurt at the beach. We used THC and CBD.
Leo is the dog, not the
Leo's the dog. Yeah. But then when Leo got hurt again, my boyfriend was like, no, we're going the traditional route. And
boyfriend. Okay. So, but what I wanted to emphasize, regardless of my misunderstanding, I do apologize, Leo, is that you use the word heal. So it's not like you use the CBD and the micro amounts of THC just so that they didn't feel it and they were still swollen and still there was sickness. It was the word heal that I really wanted to call everybody's attention to, because that's huge. That means it integrates with our body so well and allows us to do something that our body really is designed to do anyway, which is heal given the right environment.
Absolutely. And with Leo, it was really crazy because he took a bad fall. He was splayed out and he couldn't even walk. So my boyfriend had to carry him back to where we were staying. And, you know, I was beside myself. We couldn't find a vet. We couldn't do anything. So I'm like, okay, we're just going to go the CBD THC route. And I knew what to do. And literally he was able to sleep. He slept really soundly. And then the next day, you know, that those anti-inflammatory properties, they really helped. And he could walk. I mean, he was limping, but it was a complete turnaround. Where he hurt his knee, he was limping, and it took over a month for him no longer to limp.
And something as simple as sleep is huge in the healing factor. I mean, human beings, we know that very well. If you can't sleep, you can't heal. That's when your body, you know, does its repairing. That's huge.
Right. Absolutely.
That's amazing. Awesome.
Well, one thing I also want to talk about with CBD, because you just kind of triggered this in my brain and I don't want to forget, is that, you know, when it comes to buying CBD, we never buy it from Amazon, right? Never buy it from Amazon.
Please.
And the reason for that being is there is no, testing, or Amazon's not checking and saying like, oh, you know, do they come from a legal state, or, you know, nothing's being checked. And there was a study that showed that most of the products on Amazon don't even contain CBD. So the way to find, isn't that crazy? You spend $100 on a bottle and 0 CBD. So what we have is called full spectrum, broad spectrum, and CBD isolate. And this is where it gets really confusing when you go to buy CBD, because you'll see all these different things. Oh, and you'll see hemp seed oil. And you think, well, CBD comes from hemp, so hemp seed oil must be CBD. It's not. It doesn't have any of the same properties. So stay away from hemp seed oil. If it says hemp seed oil, say no. But broad spectrum, or I'm sorry, full spectrums where, like I said before, they take the whole plant, you get all the healing properties from the whole plant. That is what you want. And that is more than likely going to have that 0.03% THC. But again, don't be afraid of it. Broad spectrum takes some of the plants, probably the sticks and stems and not really the buds. And it's somewhat effective, right? You know, it's still effective. You're going to need a little bit more. CBD isolate is where they strip everything but the CBD. They isolate that CBD. And really the healing properties lie in the other endocannabinoids that are helping CBD. So when you strip it and have an isolate, and there's a lot of isolates out there, you need so much more CBD to see the effects. So if you can get a full spectrum, again, Penguin has a beautiful full spectrum that they will ship pretty much anywhere in the United States, because I think all the states are open to CBD now. So I highly recommend just full spectrum. If there's a company, you know, in Colorado or Washington that you would rather get it from, totally fine. Just make sure that it's always full spectrum, because that is where you're going to get the true healing properties of everything.
That's huge. That's really important. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean, it's because it's really confusing when you first step into the CBD space, because of all these different full spectrum, broad spectrum, isolate, and everybody says this is the best. You'll go into a dispensary and sometimes the bud tenders will say, oh, this is a really good isolate. And it's like, no, it's not. You can't always trust those bud tenders, you know, so do your own due diligence. I think that's the most important thing. And of course, this guide is going to have lots of information about that.
Yes. Well, that brings us to, wait, did you cover dosing?
No, that's our next big thing. So now that we have our full spectrum CBD, and more than likely it's going to come in I wanted to have one, a little, bottle with a dropper. And if you get it from a good company, like another company I absolutely love is Treatables. Treatables is a full pet line. Penguin is a human grade, but you can use human grade. You know, it's just CBD. You can use human grade. Just don't do edibles or anything like that. You just get the pure CBD full spectrum oil, and then you can use it with your animals. But Treatables, she used to be in California. She's been doing this since 2013. So she is one of the first to market with a CBD pet product. And now she's out of Tennessee. But anyway, she has an incredible line, and her droppers, they have a measurement. So if you're just starting out and you want to know exactly how much to give, and I highly recommend it, I'm going to say start with Treatables. Now she might be a little more expensive, but if you start with Treatables, then you can go over to Penguin, and then you'll know how much to dose. So her little dropper has all the milligrams on it, because when we start off, and this again is according to Dr. Ricker, he has a really great dosing schedule, but he uses kilograms. So he says 0.25 to 0.50 milligrams of CBD for every kilogram. Well, a kilogram, you have to know what a kilogram is. A kilogram is 2.26 pounds. So if you have a dog that weighs 10 pounds, you would give that dog anywhere from 1 milligram to 2 milligrams, right? Here's an easier way to do it. You could break it down to like a fourth, right? So if your dog weighs 10 pounds, you could start with like 2 milligrams of CBD or even 1 milligram. You can start low and go slow, because remember, it's not going to hurt your animal. 1 milligram, 2 milligrams CBD for a 10-pound animal is not a huge amount. But you know what, if you want to start even lower, start lower. Dr. Richter always suggests that you split the doses in two. So you give like half of the dose in the morning, half of the dose at night. I have found through trial and error that if you're not getting a response, like let's say you have a really anxious dog and you give her 1 milligram and she's still like a chihuahua shaking, then a couple hours later up it, give her another milligram. See what that does. And then if she's still shaking, give her another milligram, So then now you're up to 3 milligrams. And if she finally starts to stop shaking and starts to become more relaxed, you can go, okay, 3 milligrams seems to be per
That's the base.
dosage.
Yeah.
So you just do that for a week, right? You want to
Mhm.
keep it about a week of the same dosage. But I would say the first couple of days, you kind of play around with it. Now, the important thing to note here is too much can give you the exact opposite effect. So it's called it's biphasic effect, where you reach a certain plateau, that's your dose. But if you go over it, now you're back to the beginning. So you just want to just be really careful, watch that dosaging. So for my 60-pound pit bull who is aggressive, he's reactionary, I give him 30 milligrams. Well, I give him total 60 milligrams, 1 milligram per pound, but I give him 30 milligrams in the morning, 30 milligrams at night. You know, so it's a split dose, so he's not getting too much. His bowels aren't affected, but like Leo's bowels are affected by the oil. So we always have to make sure we're supplementing that again with like the sweet potato and the pumpkin.
Yeah. And you and I had this conversation when we spoke before the interview, which was, you know, just for those of you who are new to trying natural remedies, it is not like taking an aspirin. You have to figure out how your body is going to work with this natural supplement. And like Leah says, start small and just incrementally figure out what your body needs. Hi, who's that?
This is Nika.
Hi,
Nika doesn't get CBD yet. See, she's pretty good. She's pretty mellow, so we haven't given it to her yet. Maybe a little bit for anxiety will come.
Beautiful.
Yeah, she's sweet. But yes, no, definitely, because it's not like Vicodin, you know, you're gonna get here, take one pill for pain every 4 hours. That's it.
Right. Because I say that because I've known people who've tried something one time and they're like, yeah, no, that didn't work. Whether it's, you know, herb, CBD, whatever, like that's not how it works. You have to like really, you have to stack it. You have to measure it. You have to figure out what your body needs. And there will be a spot where your body finds that place where like, oh yeah, this is wonderful. But you have to be patient with natural remedies like CBD and other things. It's not a one and done.
It's not. I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, CBD didn't work for my dog or my cat. And it's like, well, you either were giving too much, but most of the time it's error on the too little. Because again, every body is different. So like you and I, you could take 10 milligrams of CBD for anxiety, and I would need maybe more like 25. But I always also, if you're going to do this for yourself, which I always recommend people try it so they know what their animal is feeling. If you're going to try CBD, do it at night, 3 hours before you go to bed. Because one time I really needed to get some sleep and it was like midnight and I had to be up at 4 a.m. So I thought, oh, I'm going to take some CBD. And I took like 20 milligrams, which probably if I would have gotten full 8 hours of sleep wouldn't have been a big deal. But I woke up at 4 a.m. to take my boyfriend to the airport. And I was like, oh, I felt like I drank a bunch of cough syrup. I just felt really sleepy. And I was like, oh no, I can't drive. I can't drive. So it's not like it's without any type of side effects like that. So we always just want to, you know, take it like 3 hours before. Yeah, plan way ahead on a weekend.
Plan ahead, baby. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. No, that's so important. That's so important. Leah, is there anything else that you wanted to impart? You've unpacked so much for us today, and I'm so grateful for all the wisdom that you shared with us. Is there anything else that we didn't cover? I think we got everything on your
No, I think that we covered everything I really wanted to just kind of, and you know, of course the guide will have more information. And again, you know, Dr. Gary Richter is going to be on this, and you're all going to be able to go to his site and you can learn more about him, but he is a wonderful resource. He actually has a little webinar, and I think it's pretty cheap, on cannabis. And he talks all about kind of what I've shared here and a little bit more. Yeah. So it's a really wonderful seminar about cannabis. So I highly recommend that. But again, you know, like you said, start low and go slow. That's like the cannabis slogan in the cannabis industry for THC, but we say it too for CBD, especially with our animals, right? Because they're our best friends. And we don't want them to have a bad experience.
They are. And it's our responsibility to really, I love that. Start low and go slow. That's beautiful. So, okay, Leah, what is your website? How can people find you?
So they can find me at animal-bonds.com. And that's where this guide will also be housed to. And there's all kinds of other resources. And if you're interested in learning about meditating with animals, not only for yourself, but for their peace too, which is where a lot of this comes from. It's just my goal to help animals live a peaceful life. We all deserve a peaceful life.
That's beautiful. And so all that stuff's going to be on the link below too. And don't forget to grab your free link, you guys. Leah is going to give you information on a little more detailed on what we shared today and what she talked about, because it was so much to learn, as well as trusted resources for CBD.
Absolutely.
Sweet. Leah D'Ambrosio, thank you so much for being here today. We truly appreciate you and honor you. Thank you for being part of the Pet Lovers Summit.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for what you're doing to elevate animals. I just am so grateful.
Right back at you, baby. You're a rock star. Thank you so much, Leah.